Okay, good morning. My name's Philip Crowe. I'm a PhD candidate funded by the Tourist Project for the past 4 years, coming to the end of it. I've got about 3 weeks to go, so today's task is not to explain to you my PhD thesis. It's to introduce, it's a much more pleasant task, it's to introduce to you some of the projects that have come out of the journey of the Dublin partners. So the Dublin partners being Dublin City Council as the local authority partner, UCD as an academic partner, and Dermot Foley Landscape Architects as the SME partner. So it's been a very much a transdisciplinary process. And as Zaritza mentioned a few minutes ago, all of these experiments that I'm going to present today, and I'm only presenting 3 of them, they're all the result of collaborations and networks with local communities. And they've all been developed in collaboration, and they're all being operated in collaboration with citizens and community groups. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those people for their generous and very significant contribution to this work. And I know that several people from those community groups and citizens are in the room today. So our brief as the Dublin partners was, I suppose, quite open-ended. It was basically to try and figure out what does this nebulous concept of urban resilience, it's a shiny new idea, mean in practice. And I suppose we've come up, what has emerged from it are slightly surprisingly fundamental and simple ideas that we feel can help cities adapt to change. So to give you some examples, the 3 I'm going to talk about today, the first one, reusing Dublin, it's simply trying to understand how spaces are used in the city or how spaces are not used in the city. The second one, collaborations, is looking at making community groups and collaborative projects visible and accessible, which sounds fairly simple. But like all of these things, they sound simple, but actually when you get into them, they're extremely complex and do involve an awful lot of work. And the third one, called ComPass, is simply trying to provide a guide for activating community projects. So I'm going to introduce each in turn. I'm going to set out what the challenges were, what are these innovations or these projects, these experiments, what are they responding to? I'm going to describe each experiment very briefly. I'm being timed. So I've got 15 minutes. And then I'm going to reflect on what has been learned and where they might be going in the future. And I suppose it's important to say that actually after tourists, most of these innovations are homeless and they need to have a life beyond tourists, and they need to have some form of an organization take them on and support them into the future. Or possibly they become part of a future Horizon 2020 project. ComPass is basically responding to the fact that communities are active and well-placed to solve problems in their locality, and there are many really impressive local champions that commit significant time and energy to these projects. But actually getting a community-driven project off the ground is no mean feat, and it depends on the ability of that community to navigate the system. The system isn't designed necessarily to help them. And there can be a number of reasons for this. There's often no clear, appropriate process or roadmap to follow. There's a lack of access to shared experiences on success factors and barriers. And the required information is often inaccessible and held in silos. And then on the flip side, local authorities are often looking for ways to cooperate and support. So there's obviously a way forward. So the solution that we've been developing is this idea of a navigation guide. It's basically a roadmap for activating community-driven projects. And we listen to a whole range of communities and their experiences, their journeys on these projects. And we develop them into case studies with very in-depth timelines. And they're the whole list of projects, such as the Cork Street Park campaign, Mountjoy Square Society, Granby Park, and Clontarf Residents Association, etc. So this project, ComPass, brings together, it consolidates all of this knowledge into a guide, and it provides an overview of steps involved in navigating this process. So we've developed 9 seed processes for community-driven actions, and they're provided and they're useful in the different activity stages of the process, and you can see them again on screen. So you click into one of those, and you then get subcategories, and when you click on the subcategories, you get asked all these pertinent questions, searching questions, which aim to basically clarify, frame, and communicate relevant aspects of the project. And they're all based on lessons learned from these case studies. So it's been a very simple but very in-depth exercise. And links are provided to these case studies. So what have we learned from this process? We've learned that activating community-driven projects, as you might expect, is not easy. It's extremely complex in the city. It's not necessarily made easy. Could be made easier. But something like this might help because it will reveal how projects have been done before. It makes sure this knowledge is passed on, that it's not lost. It makes sure that people aren't reinventing the wheel all the time. It reveals what supports are out there and what might be useful ways of collaborating with the local authority. And we hope that eventually it might precipitate change and make these projects easier. So again, this project needs to find a home beyond tourists. It needs to be developed. It needs to engage further with communities. It needs to be tested, and the communities need to provide feedback. So that's quite a complex and resource-intensive process. And we are ultimately hoping that it becomes a living knowledge resource for citizens who want to activate community-driven projects in the city.